I know we only get 1 hour, and we have a lot of very interesting people on our panel today, so I'm worried that's not going to be enough time. So welcome, and first I'll introduce myself, do a bit of community building, which I think we've learned is important in building trust. And so I just want to start by saying I'm Jeff McCulloch. I'm the outgoing co-chair of the Alumni Giving Committee. I'm here with Michelle Klanowski. Hi, Michelle. And we have a panel today, and what I'm going to do is hand this over to let each panelist introduce themselves and kind of talk a little bit about their background with, or their relationship with the university, with Northwestern University. And I think what we're trying to accomplish today is we want to get a better understanding of the reasons, the importance, or the motivation for giving back to the university. And we also want to get a better understanding of how to communicate that message to our fellow alumni. So this committee was started about 3 years ago. We were given the mission to drive up alumni giving to a level that was in line with our peer institutions, because this was an area that we were maybe a little bit weaker in. And initially we thought, okay, well, there's a lot of people out there giving, must be a good thing, let's just let everybody know. And so we put together a message, and it didn't really translate, and we found that that message wasn't received the same way by everybody. So then we thought, okay, well, there's different people. If we can just categorize these people and craft a message for each category, then they'll understand the importance of giving to Northwestern University. And again, the message just wasn't received as well as we'd like by everybody. So now, 3 years in, I think we've identified the way to communicate that message, and I think today is going to reveal that. So when we wrap this up, we'll see if that's true or not. So first, I'm going to pass the mic down the line, and we'll start with Emily. And Emily, if each panelist can just introduce yourself, talk about your relationship with the university, and then we'll get into questions about giving back to the university.
Okay, my name is Emily Hseu. I graduated in School of Speech, or School of Communication, in 2004. I first got involved with the Northwestern Alumni Group about 2 years after I graduated with the NU Club of Chicago and the Young Alumni Group. So I co-chaired that committee, and then I moved to Portland, where I became the treasurer of the NU Club of Portland, and the NAA also selected me to be a regional director. So as part of my role, I oversee the Seattle, San Francisco, Portland, and Alaska, if we were to ever open a club there, which I would love to see. I'm also right now a co-chair of my 10-year reunion that's coming up here in a month. And yeah, I've been coming to Leadership Symposium now for about 8 years, and so it's kind of interesting to see how the attendees and the group has evolved over time.
Good afternoon. I was probably selected on this panel because maybe my message will go out to all the retirees in retirement homes. But that being said, my name is Fred Brown. I was a 1962 graduate of the at that time was the College of Liberal Arts, now the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences. And I've had a wonderful relationship with Northwestern over the years, and have served as chairman of our reunion committees for several of those, most recently the 50th, and also had the opportunity to serve as a regent. And I'm coming in this year as chair of the Regents. The Regents is an organization as part of the Alumni Association, which is really an extension of the President's Office, and we represent the President's Office in several activities and work with the various alumni groups around the country. So it's an honor and a privilege to be with you today. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Jennifer Trammell. I'm from the Medill class of 2010, and this is my third Leadership Symposium. I've enjoyed becoming more involved from the local club level. I'm with the NU Club of Greater Naples as the Vice President of Membership, and I started as a board member at large, and now this is my third year with the board there. I've been involved with the Students Committee since last year, and I'm continuing with that committee this year.
Hi, I'm Candy Deemer, Medill grad 1976 and went back for more 1977 with a major in advertising, which is now integrated communications. My relationship with Northwestern really started when somebody called and asked me to co-chair like I think it was the 5-year reunion or the 10-year reunion, so I've co-chaired a couple of those. But it started at a deeper level when I was invited to join the Council of 100. And I think we're almost at 25 years now with the council. I've been on it since the beginning. And that really, for me, led to a very deep relationship with Northwestern that seems to get also broader. I've been on the board of advisors for Medill. I've been a director at large here for 3 years, and I'm an incoming secretary for the Alumni Association. And every single experience has been delightful, mind expanding. I learn something new every time I come here and every time I interact with other Northwestern grads, and really rewarding. So that's why I keep coming back for more.
Thank you. So a lot of the relationship with Northwestern involves engagement. And then specifically, alumni giving is maybe just another level of engagement or a different level of engagement. And I think both parts are important. And to whatever level, a lot of people have more time to give. Some have less. Some have more money. Some have less. But doing something that's meaningful. So I just want to talk about what motivates you, or if you can share a personal story of giving and how you feel it benefited the Northwestern community or gave you a sense of fulfillment, or just sharing that personal example that that the reason, I guess, behind you feel the need to give back to Northwestern. Why is that important to you?
Okay, so ever since I've been involved with the NAA board, I've realized the benefit of being a Northwestern alum. And so it's become almost an obligation for me to donate every year. It's, even if, like, when I was in MBA, when I was working on my MBA, I donated $10 a year because I was still working towards my student loans. And Northwestern didn't care. They just cared that I was willing to give back. And so I appreciated the fact that it's not about the dollar amount, it's just about my continued participation in that regards. I do have to say, about 3 years ago when I really felt the impact of my donation. The NU Club of Portland, we do an annual scholarship every year for an incoming freshman. And at one of the admitted students parties, we actually announced the awardee who was actually present, and she had no clue, and she got really emotional and started tearing up, and it was completely unexpected. And that's when I can see that just even like a $500 scholarship that the club donated to her on her behalf could really help her in her life.
My journey with Northwestern and with giving really began at the beginning when I was a student. And I came from humble beginnings in West Virginia and had the opportunity to come to Northwestern, and as a result of an academic scholarship, as well as the opportunity to work while I was here. And my career was in healthcare. I was a healthcare executive of a large healthcare organization in St. Louis for many years, and had a strong mission as a result of my parents to give back and to serve others. And that really kind of, in a sense, really helped formulate my relationships, my ongoing relationships with Northwestern. And I was surprised a couple years ago when Jessica created and the team created the Loyal Society, and I think I've given something like 38 or 39 years, which I didn't remember doing that, but somehow it happened. So it was a small gift at the beginning, and but I felt like that I needed to give something back, and I had the strong relationship, and the opportunity for my own career came about because of my education at Northwestern, and Northwestern became very important to me, and has continued to be very important, and that's what's really driven me and my compassion and passion for Northwestern and giving back.
38 or 39 years, talk about NU loyal. You set the standard. Right.
I assume that's platinum.
Of everyone here, how many receive some form of scholarship, some form of financial aid? It's a lot of us. And my attendance at Northwestern would not have been possible without financial aid. My dad was a dairy farmer. My mom's an elementary school teacher. We weren't rolling in the dough. There was no way we could afford tuition at Northwestern without help. And I just know that this experience and every subsequent experience would not have been possible without that support. And at the time, I didn't really think about where that money was coming from, that it was gifted from the university. And I realize now that that comes from all of us. Those grants and scholarships are made possible by our contributions. And those experiences for future students don't exist unless we support them. I think that not only is Northwestern a better place by giving those students the opportunity to attend, but if we continue to put those graduates out into the world's a better place by having that experience.
Well, it's interesting. My story is very similar to yours. Came from a family that could never have afforded to send me here, and I got a scholarship and work-study package from Northwestern that made it less expensive for me to come to Northwestern than it would be to pay in-state tuition at UCLA. And that was a long time ago, and in-state tuition in California was pretty cheap. This also, by the way, was my father's dream for me, was to come to Northwestern, because he had come here many, many years ago for a year as a student, but couldn't afford to stay. So I came to Medill, and that's my mega reason for giving back. Sorry, I always get teary when I talk about this, because it changed my life. And so that's my mega reason for giving back. There'll never be enough years to give back to this university. And the more recent, so I've always given back to Medill. With the Council of 100, we started a Trailblazer Award, and we discovered SIGP, now I don't even remember what it stands for, Summer Internship Program. And what really was compelling to me about this program is there are a lot of summer internships that are unpaid. And I know, because I was a scholarship student, there's no way I could have afforded to take something that didn't pay me money in the summer, because I had to work for money in the summer so I could come back the next fall. And these internships are really important for students. So we funded, I think in the first year at the Council 100, we funded 1 or 2 internships. And I think now we're up to, 6 or 8, because we have the students come back and talk to us, and it just motivates everybody to raise their hand and say, I'm going to give more money, I'm going to give more money, so we can send more on these summer internships, because they talk about how transformative the experience is. And there's not a lot of experiences in life that are transformative. And this is one of them. For how many people in the audience found this to be a transformative experience for you guys? Yeah, virtually all of us. So that's a pretty priceless thing.
I'm a SIGP recipient too. I went to Sioux Falls, South Dakota the summer after junior year, and I worked for the CBS affiliate there, but of course it was unpaid. And that was an experience that I couldn't have taken if I were to make no money for that summer. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing those. I think we do all have stories like that. And so one thing we found as a committee is that our stories are all unique, but we're all one community. We're all one Northwestern. But every story was unique. So that message that we're trying to share, as far as whether you see the result of what your giving has done, or whether you see it directly impacting you, or whatever the reason is, every reason is unique. And I think just having that ability to share your motivation and your reason, it gives that person listening the opportunity to reflect upon their reasons and encourages them to share their story. So for me, this is very, very high impact. I have a very similar story as well, where I came here with 2 duffel bags. I didn't even have a parent bring me. And to have the opportunity to go here, when people ask me, because I grew up in San Diego, and they say, why did you go to Chicago for school? And I said, because they let me. I mean, that's really the reason I came here, is I felt like this would be an unbelievable opportunity. And I remember being very conscientious, waking up in dorm rooms thinking, I'm pretty lucky to be here. So I feel like you, Candy, where there's not enough years to give back. My whole life has been shaped by this experience for the better. So Michelle has a microphone. I'd be interested in hearing, I know everybody has a story here, but I would definitely be interested in hearing a few more.
I think giving must be in my gene pool because I'm the 22nd member of our family to go to Northwestern. And I was the class of 60, and now we're up to 36 members. So it's just been an ongoing tradition in our family to follow through, continue to support.
Thanks, Candy. When you started to talk, I started to cry. So there you go. I'm Carrie Graber. I grew up in Aberdeen, South Dakota, and I started learning about Northwestern from a very early age because my parents had both gone here. And it turned out that the only school that people who left Aberdeen, South Dakota went to was Northwestern if they didn't stay in state. So that was it was the only school I applied to. And I met my husband here. Every job I've ever had has been through a Northwestern connection. My younger son went here. He met his wife. I'm on the council. I've been in the NA. I'm one of those people that bleeds purple, you know, that they say. But one of the things that occurred to me as we've been talking over the last couple days about my thinking about how I'm going to reach out to people I know who I suspect don't give, but are old friends. And I've been composing a letter in my mind saying, one of the reasons I want to give back to Northwestern is because I met you at this event, and I grew up in South Dakota, so I was just in Sioux Falls before I came here. So anyway, I have been composing this letter to my friends and to people in my family or whatever to say this is why I am here and giving to Northwestern, is because you're a part of my life, and you wouldn't have been if I didn't come to school here.
So I'm not sure who the lady who said 22nd. I think that's a great story, and it's a story that needs to be told in our magazine or something of that nature. When you agree with me, it's a great story, and I think people will read it. The reason why I think about stories, because working in my field, I work for Portland State University Alumni Association, and I look at this type of giving all the time, and the biggest complaint alums across the nation have is that when I give my money, I don't know how the money's being used. And I think that's where we missed the boat. And I'm not sure if that's the communication's been going out, but I do recommend when we tell these stories, we need to say that this money's been used this way, this is who has helped, and we get those sometimes. But again, the one thing alums always seem to remember is like, you keep asking me for money, and we know you get a lot of other stuff going on, you get the magazine, but why do they always remember that one letter? So I think that we have got to get better at telling the story of, this is how this money was used. And I'm not quite sure how we do that specifically because we are doing it, but we need to get better at it. So just a recommendation there. And again, great story. I think we need to tell that story.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. That's I think that is an important point, that in communicating this, your personal story. So we're all leaders in the NAA community, which is why we're here. And so we have that responsibility. So I love hearing that you're composing this letter, and one of the big reasons is that you met them. And but sharing that story, which we've all talked about up here, how those dollars are being put to work. And some of it is very large scale, maybe very distant from us personally, but other things that we can have an impact on are how it affected you directly. So just by sharing your personal story, you're kind of showing not necessarily how your dollar is being used specifically, but how the dollars are being used. And now, many years later, it's just that pay it forward type mentality. So with our university, as we try and close that gap between us and our peer institutions, I think that I think that will be a big part of it. So with that, I think this is a good segue.
We have one more story to share.
Story or more of a question, and this actually you answered the question I was going to ask, and you posed that too about, this is all about marketing, and we're talking about the follow-up that happens after you make the sale, after you get the money, and the thank you, and the demonstration. You're saying give us some money so you can make a difference, but then to prove exactly how that person did make a difference in a specific way, to give meaning to those dollars. And I wanted to ask about, there are some, it was me and my family, I did not grow up in a culture of charity or philanthropy or giving, perhaps because we were recipients of it. So can we talk about, someone from the university, talk about inoculating the culture of giving, of performance, and serving, and how serving as a student, giving of yourself, can translate into giving once you have something to give.
Yeah.
Jess, would you mind?
And just before Jess gets the microphone here, I will say that that's definitely happening. The students from my interaction, the students on campus seem much more engaged than even when I was just there. So that engagement is happening, and then that next level of engagement, like you said, when they're able to give in a way that's meaningful to them, that happens. But how do you get them to take that next step? Yeah.
Oh, well, I don't know. I'm Jess Tykes. I run the annual fund here, and these are great questions. And I'm going to let you answer because I think you might know. Because that's also, it must be your case too, because what I'm hearing is a lot of people came to Northwestern on financial aid, probably not from families that had a lot of money to be charitable with, and something happened to you where you recognized, I call it spiritual work. There is something that happens when you can help others, and gratitude when you recognize it was something that you were fortunate enough to receive. So I don't know. I can say that a couple things about trying to show impact of giving. I love that idea. I think we haven't done it well. If you have ideas of how to make the cause come alive, have a SIGP person tell you, I couldn't have gone to this radio or television station without this money, that's terrific. Our students are philanthropic. 57% of them, 1,202 of them made a gift last spring as part of their senior class. But I don't know that they think of Northwestern as a place that needs their money. I think that part is a little mysterious, and I think we're going to be extra challenged in campaign when they see all these gorgeous buildings and all of these wonderful programs that aren't benefiting them exactly today. So please reflect on that if you have any ideas for me.
Yeah, and I'll hand it over to our. Oh, go ahead, please.
A response, actually. It kind of goes back to something a parent had said in a meeting that, oh, those are services that my child will never benefit from. And as you just said, that those are services that a lot of students will think, I'll never need them, or the university doesn't need me in that sense. And it just draws up the premise of the university, whatsoever things are pure, okay, help me out, think on these things, the motto, the mantra. Whatsoever things are pure in heart, whatsoever, okay, you're all embarrassing yourselves right now. You should be able to recite it. But it should start early in your undergraduate experience, and you should be thinking about it even though you weren't a student that benefited from needing a financial aid package. you should think about what's going on here. Not just because you didn't need the package, but that this is the premise of the university, that anyone that's accepted here because of what they have to offer the institution should be able to attend, regardless of the fact that they don't have the funds. And I did recruiting. I was sharing this with Candy. I did this as an undergrad. I was fortunate enough to walk into work study and get a job working as an undergraduate recruiter. I represented this wonderful institution doing minority recruitment for all 4 years of my undergraduate. I traveled for this university. I was fortunate enough to have an expense account and represent this great institution across the country in the 4 marketing areas: New York, Los Angeles, Michigan. What's the 4th one? I'm forgetting, but I traveled for all 4 years recruiting minority students here under that very premise. And I had to get them to understand that it was equally as important when you got here to understand and maintain that relationship with the university because of how you got here. And then as they got closer to graduating out, to still maintain the relationship, become an alumni, and give back so that someone else will be able to have that same kind of relationship. But then to get the other 85% that weren't receiving those benefits to buy in, and do that while they're undergrads, not wait until they graduate as alumni to build a relationship. And you do that by chunking away. You build the paradigm now. Not wait to shift the paradigm when they're alumni. That's when you guys are doing all the work now, but you have to work on it when they're undergraduates and build that system.
Well, no, I would agree. I think your points are well taken and very valid. And I do think, you know, we connected different points as represented by the panel up here and your commitment or your discussion out there. But I do think that the university and the leadership of the university and the Alumni Association, not only because of the campaign that's ahead of us, but the focus on increasing the amount of participation is very appropriate. Because sometimes we all get taken back by those major gifts, which are necessary, absolutely necessary for any $3 billion campaign, and we forget that those individual gifts of 10, 50, 100 are just as important. And I think that the refocus that Jessica and her team, the Alumni Association, has made to really focus on participation and going back to your step that it's done as a freshman all the way through their undergraduate years and graduate years, to make that connect. You know, someone asked me, why have I given for 39 years? I'm not sure I could give a succinct answer at the beginning, but I just felt the need to give back in general terms, and as my career progressed and my ability to give increased, then you began to focus on different projects or different scholarships within the university. But I do think that we're going in the right direction, because there was a period of time when people got overwhelmed by saying, well, they don't care about anybody unless they get 500,000 or $1 million or plus. But I think that has all changed on a very positive basis to say, you know, we're focused on everyone participating. And the other message is, that never gets out, well, this university has this huge endowment, but at the same time, 70% of the costs are in tuition, but that's the other 30% that people don't realize is being funded through our gifts, and that's very important that messaging gets out.
To address your point, what that transition of going from engagement, being engaged, to that next level of actually giving, I'd be interested in maybe hearing about that first time you recall actually giving money to the university and what triggered that. And I'll tell you, for me, I grew up in a family that didn't really do that, and I wasn't educated in that, but I was always giving of my time. I was always volunteering my time. And one day, Charles called me and said, we're trying to get 100% participation from the NAA board, and I noticed you haven't given yet. And I said, you know, okay, what do I need to do? And he said, I just sent you an email link. And that was my first gift. So that just made me aware of what is this about, and I started looking into it more because, yeah, I do want to know where does that money go, and only to learn about all the ways it benefits the community as a whole, which is so important to keep the strength of this university and our community. But then I start to reflect back on how it actually affected me directly when I was receiving those funds, and the circle is completed. And I think that's that spiritual moment, or that's that moment where I had an understanding. So if we can maybe complete that circle for people, and like for me, I would just had to be hit over the head one time, but you know, everybody is going to receive that message differently. I am a believer that, or our committee it believes that by us as leaders sharing our stories, it's going to create that connection. It's going to complete that circle for a lot of people.
I remember the first time I donated was actually my senior year, was when a phone-a-thon student called me and asked me to donate $20.04. And I was, you know, when I was on the phone call, I was like, well, that's a no-brainer, $20, that's a dinner I can just skip one night. And so that was the first time I donated, and it made me realize that the university is actually not asking for that much money. I think as a senior, I had this mentality that they were asking for hundreds of dollars from me as a student, and that's not something I could afford at the time. My next donation didn't occur until about 3 or 4 years later, and that was after my first leadership symposium. It was communicated, and it really hit me that, you know, our rankings, which is something I was really proud of as a student, is based off of participation, and they really instilled that in me in my first leadership symposium. And it was, you know, communicated that the dollar amount, it doesn't matter. And I keep reiterating that, and I think it's a big message, because I think a lot of the fears that people have with donating is that the university wants us to donate $1,000, and, you know, as someone who's 10 years out, it's not really feasible for me right now to donate that much money.
The difficult question was, remember 39 years ago why I gave. But that being said, is that I do think that as all of us up here on the panel, and yourselves as well, talked about how you entered Northwestern, it was always, throughout my healthcare career, I had a strong mission to give back, and I had a strong mission to make the world a better place. And this was in my DNA, I guess, as a result of my parents, and so it was very important to me to realize that I was successful because of one reason, and that was my education at Northwestern, clearly, and my graduate education at another university. But this is where it all started, and that's what it was important to me, that they gave me an opportunity, and I wanted to give future students the same opportunity.
I also started giving through senior class gift, and I co-chaired that campaign in 2010. So I realized that we're asking students for $20.10, and it's that first step in giving. But it's just the first step. How do you get them to do year 2 and year 3 and year 4? So my best friend Amy's here for her first leadership symposium. And when we were in college, we used to pick something charitable to do for our Christmas gifts to each other. And the first year we bought a goat for a family in Africa. One year we did books for a literacy campaign. And when we graduated, we said, well, let's make our Northwestern gift our Christmas gifts to each other. And so that's what we've done for the last 3 years since graduation. And it's great because we don't need to give each other anything. We know our money is going to the absolute best cause we could think of, and it honors our friendship that we wouldn't know each other without this university. So it makes it an easy annual time to do that. Now, why do we keep giving? You know, on the honor roll lists, now they do the infinity symbols if you've given every year since graduation. Well, it's really easy when you're only 4 years out. But I have an infinity symbol, and I am so proud of that, and I will never, ever, ever let that go away. And I think that's really motivating for young alums who have that as an opportunity coming out of school, to have that little infinity symbol next to your name. There was one thing I was thinking about when it comes to level of giving, because it's kind of awkward to ask people, you don't want to ask, how much do you give, and what should I be giving? And in the beginning, it was easy with senior class gift because we gave them an amount we were asking for. And I've made it a personal goal since then to hit the leadership circle level. And it's easier when you're 0 to 5 years and 5 to 9 years. It's prorated essentially. But the first couple years was $100. Now 5 years it'll step up to $300, and then you'll hit the $1,000 level. So I think that gives us something to aim for if it's within your means and it's a level that you feel comfortable giving. And I just wanted to say that because I think sometimes we don't talk about numbers and people don't know what the expectation is. But that's a goal that I think is reasonable for someone at my career level. And going forward, I'd like to be able to step that up to the full leadership circle participation.
I love that infinity thing. Well, the first time I gave was very similar. I think I was probably a year out of school because I remember where I was when I got the phone call. I got a phone call from a student, it was the phone-a-thon. And I was like, well, sure, I'll give money. It was kind of like, I never thought about it till that student called because I didn't come from a family that was monetarily philanthropic. My parents would volunteer for stuff, but giving money away, you got to be kidding them. So that was my first gift, and I have no idea whether I've given every year since, but I know in the most recent years I've been giving every year, and I wanted to just say one other thing. I think one of the things that's been going on here with the alumni over the past probably 4 or 5 years, maybe longer because time flies at my stage now, I think when I came out of Northwestern, I don't think we had a culture of philanthropy in that era, in the 70s. It was the 60s, it was the 70s, and I think we're in the process. If we had a culture of philanthropy at Northwestern, our percentages would be way higher, right? And I think we're in the process of working to shift that culture. Especially with older alums like us. Geez, I hate to put myself in that category, but that's why there has to be a lot of talk about it because it takes a lot to shift a culture. And I know for me at first when I was tasked with asking people to start giving money to Northwestern, I was like, ooh, I really don't like to have to talk to people about that. Now, I can't wait to go and talk to somebody to ask them to give money to Northwestern. And one of the things in LA that I'm working on also is trying to get people to step up to the leadership level. And so I'll look at people and kind of customize my pitch to them, but part of it is also about the benefit that they get from giving. Selfishly, it's like, give $1,000, you get invited to really cool stuff, and we have a lot of events in LA. Step up. And you're just going to meet an extraordinary group of people. Come to these events. You're going to be amazed at the people you meet. Talk about networking. I tell young alums coming out, it's like, this is the most powerful career network that you have, and it'll probably remain that way if you're active for your entire life. So it's like Carrie said, all of her work has come from her Northwestern network. So there's a whole lot of reasons to give, too. When you start to look, one of the things I really appreciated the strategic plan when they were showing it to us was they started going into the categories, and I remember seeing the med, and Carla's in med school, I remember seeing that huge med school number, $1.4 billion they want to raise. And I said, wow, that's a huge number. What's all that money for? And whoever was giving the talk said, well, in the med school, they want to raise $800 million as an endowment because they want to be able to send every student through med school completely tuition free. And given all of the changes in medicine, you're not going to get out and be a doctor in the future and make $500,000. So, and we need really great doctors, right? We need Northwestern doctors. And I thought that's a really great goal. So once you start explaining why we need this money and that all of the wonderful things it's going to and how expensive research is to do and that the research that Northwestern does, changes the world, drugs that what is it? Somebody told me that Northwestern's very close on a drug to treat ALS. I mean, imagine the impact of something like that. And so how much money, if somebody was sitting here in the audience and had ALS and had an open checkbook, they'd probably give every dime they have. It's life-changing things.
I keep hearing one thread through all your stories, and out here, and Jess has heard my thing, it's somebody asked you. And it's the person-to-person app. People give money to people. No matter how good the cause is, the mailing doesn't necessarily work until there's that contact, that phone call. Somebody asked you for the senior class gift. Charles called you. It's the person-to-person. The other thing that occurred to me after listening to you was we do tell the story of students on scholarship. Do we tell the story of alums who have been successful because, not only because of Northwestern, but because of the scholarship that got them to Northwestern? I read these wonderful stories about the students. That's wonderful, but somebody 10 years, 20 years out who can trace it back to that financial aid is a different story that will resonate, I think, with people of that age or older. So I'd like to suggest that we look at those kind of stories to tell also.
Hi there. Another dialogue that I hear among students, I just graduated in 13, so I'm still very much connected to recent grads and students. And one narrative that I've heard over and over again is more on the negative side, which would be, we already gave $200,000 to Northwestern. Why are they asking us for more money? And it leads to a very bitter sentiment. And I think my understanding is that when we're delivering an idea of saying like, oh, look, we're going to help other students, this is wonderful, it's very altruistic, it's extremely like worthwhile, yes. But I think it's difficult for recent graduates and even outgoing students to envision how this is delivering value directly to them. Because many of us graduating are evaluating what we're going to do and scared out of our pants trying to figure out how to do it. Even if we've had financial aid, oftentimes the debt is crippling and burdensome. So I think it's very important to, when delivering this message of giving, to make it directly applicable to those receiving the message, as opposed to those with the luxury of being able to give as generously as they do.
Yeah, so to both those points, I think that's great. I think the alumni sharing their stories, and even if that's an alumni many years removed from the university that can say, I'm successful today as a direct result of Northwestern, and the only reason I went to Northwestern was because of this financial benefit. Or even somebody who's not benefiting as a student, who's benefiting through the research that Northwestern was able to do from donations made. But all those stories are so unique, and all those stories need to continue to be shared. And we, as leaders, it's our responsibility, I think, to share them. So with it's Sasha, right? Yes. With your point about definitely students coming out of school, it's a scary time. They've, in theory, paid a lot, and so that incremental amount doesn't seem to carry a lot of weight with them. And all I can say about that is maybe in time people learn the more you give, the more you get, or it's that spiritual moment that I don't know how to communicate that other than I thought Candy's message was the most impactful to speak directly to that community, which is by keeping yourself in the leadership circle or keeping the infinity symbol, you are putting yourself in such an opportunistic environment. And maybe that's the message that resonates with those specific people. But everyone's so unique. Everyone's going to be touched by who knows what message. So we just have to keep sharing the message.
I think on to your point too, when I was a young alum, I remember that you graduate college and you leave with your set of friends that you keep in touch with. But it's when I realized that there's a greater Northwestern community out there that made me realize here's my benefit for why I was attending Northwestern. And so now you're actually getting to see it because you get to see here at Alumni Association how the connections and the networking you can make here. But how do we do that at the club level? I think it's trying to engage alums at that local level is really important. I remember when I moved to Portland, I was scared because I didn't know anybody. But when I thought about the Northwestern community, I thought, okay, I'm going to the first thing I'm going to do is join my local club, and that will be a good starting point to either network to find another job or to even find new friends in the area. And that actually worked really well, and especially in Portland where there aren't that many Northwestern alums too. So I think that's helped me connect more with the university after I graduated. But it takes getting beyond your set of close friends that you graduate with and kind of start losing touch with them before you start figuring out that you have to meet other alums that are not necessarily graduates of class of 2013.
I think that's absolutely the most common objection from young alums. We've just given a lot, we're still paying for it. You're asking our parents and they just paid a lot. But I think that giving is also an insurance policy on your degree, because 50 years from now, I still want people to see Northwestern on my resume and be impressed. And to do that, we have to maintain an absolutely stellar level of education here. And by contributing, we're able to ensure that this level of education continues. There was an article in the Chronicle of Philanthropy this past week that went around the Students Committee, and it was specifically kind of best practices for getting millennials to give. And one of the things that made giving more enticing was being able to contribute to a particular program or department or area of the university that really impacted you. And for me, that's the Northwestern News Network. So if I know that I can give money that goes directly to Medill or directly to the Northwestern News Network, that's continuing programs that had a really profound impact on me. So maybe that would resonate more with millennials. A couple other things just to run the best practices down quickly. Offer narrowly tailored giving options that allow support of specific departments and programs. Communicate through digital channels for millennials, so using email, using social media versus phone solicitation. Use colorful storytelling that illustrates how gifts are used, which I think we've covered quite a bit here. We want to know where that money is going. How is it making an impact? Offer great customer service through alumni offices and through career counseling. Show me that I'm still getting something for my degree. And then provide opportunities to donate time and skills in addition to numbers. So those are some things that, according to this article, really resonate with millennial givers. And in our local clubs, we can find opportunities to use those best practices when talking with some of our youngest alumni.
Here isn't different than anywhere else, right? So, and at the same time, I mean, basically, how do we hit home the point that we've all been recipients of aid? You know, so if 3 cents out of every 10 are through contribution, do you increase tuition by 30% and give everybody a 30% scholarship and then make them feel like they're benefiting? And how do you create that mentality? And so I just wonder if it comes to, you know, broader issues on campus where in lecture halls, in extracurricular activities, it's just made more aware that 3 cents out of every 10 is being supported by alumni. And isn't that great that they do this? Because I think, you know, I've been in this organization for so long, that's just a number we don't use that much. And I wonder if it needs to become a number not only amongst the alums, but amongst the students, so they know that when they're sitting in this hall, that 30% of it was built with contributions.
Yeah, right. That's so.
I think this is actually can go further than that, because the tuition that we pay does not cover all of the expenses of being a student. And that really resonated with me. It's substantially more when you talk about the graduate school level. Like at the med school, if you paid your full tuition, you'd be around $70,000 a year. But the cost of educating a physician is far more than that a year, you know, because they have, you know, the attendings in the ER who are teaching you around the clock. So it's more than just paying for your professor who you see during the day. You've got the research building where you're going to go and work in the lab, and you know, the tech who's there all night so you can work on your cadaver, that those costs actually far exceed the 70,000. So when I discovered that, it really is something I think that even the young alums would take notice of. So I would add that.
Well, I think it's interesting when you talk about the young alums that maybe feel, especially the ones that were not on aid, you know, or my parents just paid this money, and, you know, donating is for, you know, 25, 30 years down the line when I make it big. I mean, I think that is probably a perception there, but it sounds like we're addressing that, and we're indoctrinating the undergrads and recent alums with this notion. But it strikes me there's probably a big population of people that are, you know, older, you know, that are already in their careers that still have that thought, that aren't giving. And I would be curious what it takes to get them to then start giving. Say you've been out 25, 30 years, and you perhaps your parents paid for it, and you don't know that stat that it didn't cover the full tuition. So how do you get them to make that first time gift? Because I don't know, I'm guessing they're probably a big chunk of the reason we're at 30% or 29% participation. And I think it comes down to somebody making that ask. They probably had a good experience here, but they need someone to directly connect that positive experience they had to a current need now, or start giving now. And it kind of made me think of, you know, you go back and when did you start giving? I mean, for the first 10 years after graduating, it never occurred to me to give a gift, you know. I'm like, oh, I got to make my way. And I was very active in club stuff and that, and it wasn't until the swim coach sent out an email saying they want to do some, invest in new blocks. And I was like, all right, where does that come from? You know, I guess we have to, you know, we have to give it. So those, I think it still comes down to a person, whether it's a connection or a call from a student or somebody, giving an alum that's probably been out a little while, a little bit of a value proposition. Here's kind of what's in it for you, Candy. I mean, in the right way, that, wow, you will then feel connected again to the university, and hopefully they can then get back on that wheel where they feel more and more connected the way all of us do. But I suspect there's a pretty big population of folks out there that we haven't gotten back in the fold, you know, for a lot of the reasons we've talked about. But I think the direct approach you still have to do.
Yeah, no, definitely. And Sasha, one last comment. Go ahead. Yeah, and then Jess is going to come up and wrap up the meeting here. We're already out of time. It goes quick.
Oh. Yeah, I think one thing that we're all trying to achieve is this further solidarity within the Northwestern community. And I think, like we've talked about earlier, in connecting the students before they're alumni and making them feel assured that they're going to enter a very powerful network is absolutely key. I've had a unique undergraduate experience starting in 07, ending in 13. I've had a broad range of people that I've met. And I would say in those people that I've met, it's not that they don't believe the education is stellar. It's not that they don't believe their experiences were valuable. I think it's that the difference between our group and perhaps some IVs that have more clout at the moment is that they, as Northwestern students are going out, they don't necessarily feel as secure. They don't feel like they're part of the Purple Mafia. And I think we shouldn't be ashamed to bring them in, and we should make it very explicit that, hey, when you come out, we're going to help you out.
Agreed. The more we can solidify our community, and we're all out here to help one another, and you know, to continue to ensure that Northwestern is a place of strength. So thank you to the panelists. I want to give them a round of applause for having the courage to come up here and share. And thank you for participating, because really the goal here is just to continue the dialogue. And I think we've made a lot of progress in the last 3 to 5 years. And we want to continue to make that progress. And just, you know, we have a great group of really sharp people with great ideas. So the more ideas we can get out there, the more we'll work towards, better alumni giving to match our peer institutions. The other thing too is that we as leaders, remember, we are taking on the role of a leader, so it's our responsibility to also be out there and sharing those stories as well.